So here's my program, Rest to Rise, How to Live More Fully Through the Wisdom of Rest. And this was inspired not only by my own personal interest and personal trouble sleeping, but I found that most of my clients who were coming to me for whatever reason they were coming to me for, it often would end up going back to, oh, and by the way, I can't get a good night's rest. So I'll give you the big idea up top. Here's my TED Talk, peaceful engagement. I want to do a lot of work around the nervous system, regulating the nervous system to feel safe, engaged, and relaxed, honoring circadian rhythm and the nature of sleep, learning to rest but not sleep through relaxation practices, body awareness, and establishing a new relationship with sleep and wakefulness. So if you fall asleep after this, here's the big idea. We are aiming for that more sattva, peaceful engagement with life. So often in an effort to stay awake, there's this whole like coffee and wine culture that we hit the ground running first thing in the morning and then sort of screech the brakes on right before we go to sleep at night. And hopefully things can be more balanced and less extreme throughout the day. So I wasn't quite sure how exactly to narrow this down. So it is this like big umbrella of trouble sleeping. As many of you know, I teach at a hospice, a day hospice, a non-residential hospice. So some of these people have diagnosed insomnia, a previous diagnosis, and nothing to do with the reason that they are coming to the hospice. Lots of them have sleep, but not enough. So maybe they're caregivers, shift workers, they have a new baby, they're in many places, you know, you're scheduled for some kind of medical treatment. You know, you have to get an MRI, but it's at 4 in the morning. Or going for regular medical appointments. I mean, the number of medical appointments that you have to go to if you do have, if you're in active cancer treatment, that sort of thing, or any of the other health concerns that patients are coming in with. A lot of them are caregivers, so it might not be their own appointments, but they're driving all over the place, taking their loved ones to appointments. So they might be getting sleep, but not enough, and a lack of peaceful engagement, right? That's like a high rev, high stress sort of time. They might be getting low quality sleep, tossing and turning, or trouble staying asleep. This is, if it's like a diagnosed term, it's sleep maintenance insomnia. This is the most common type of insomnia. Or trouble falling asleep, that's sleep onset insomnia. It may not be a diagnosis. You might just have trouble falling asleep. The most popular age group for this is teenagers. They are not lazy. That is their biological clock. So any of these groups can hopefully benefit from what I'm about to show you. Oh, yes. Okay. There was so much information. I think I could spend the rest of my life working on only yoga for sleep and being peacefully engaged with your life. If you want the notes, if you want to call me anytime and chat, let me know. But I did try to scoop up what seemed like the most common practices and the most appropriate and high compliance programs too. Doesn't matter if all the research says this program's really great, if only one person stuck to it. So I chose the stuff that had good compliance and low cost. So insomnia as a sleep disorder can make it hard to fall asleep or stay asleep, wake up too early, not be able to get back to sleep, feelings of fatigue and grogginess when you wake up or during the day. We've probably all had it's a spectrum, right? You've probably had a little touch of insomnia before, even if you haven't had diagnosed insomnia, or that life happened and you were unable to get enough sleep. So acute insomnia lasts for days or weeks, maybe the result of a traumatic event. Long-term or chronic insomnia can be your whole life. So I have clients who tell me they had trouble sleeping, and this was me as well, trouble sleeping through the night when they were 5. And I think this is where ACEs are so important, that may be a cause for stress around sleeping, is a lifetime pattern of stress around sleeping. And what was going on in your home of origin that may have had an impact on that. I'm not going to focus, as I've said, on just diagnosed insomnia, but that may come up in some of the clients. Okay, so how common is lack of sleep? Not diagnosed insomnia, lack of sleep. This to me is just really scary. You know, they say you shouldn't be driving a car if you've had less than 6 hours of sleep a night. And according to Matthew Walker, that's 1/3 of the population. Now, not everybody has a driver's license, but they may be doing other high focus work, like, I don't know, performing surgery, responsible for confidential information that they shouldn't misplace. Half of all Americans are not getting 8 hours of sleep at night. And as we can probably all attest to, yeah, you can survive on 7, but like, do you really want to? And Matthew Walker describes when he takes people for programs out into the woods, and they often don't have cell phones or any access to technology. There's what he calls a washout phase, that people will be sleeping 10, 12 hours a night for the first 2 weeks. And then after that, they get into that more 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night as a more natural rhythm. But I like this term, a washout phase, right? That often will say, like, I don't know why I'm tired. I got 8 hours last night, but did you get 6 the 4 nights before that? You know, is it enough to have enough sleep during the week and then have social jet lag on the weekend, or not enough sleep during the week and then you try to catch up on the weekend? So very common, we're not getting enough sleep. I think it's important too in the fitness world, the lure of time is money, and the more hours you work, the more money you make. I used to open the gym at 5:30 in the morning, and the previous night I would have closed it at 10 o'clock. It was terrible. I would get to work and think if I closed my eyes, I could fall asleep, and I've been driving for 35 minutes. Okay. Diagnosed insomnia can affect roughly 1/3 to 1/2 of the adult population at some point in their lives. So this could be following a stressful episode, a traumatic event, something like that. But chronic insomnia diagnosis affects roughly 10 to 15% of the population. So it's common. If it's not you, the person next to you or someone else close by. Okay, factors. Why are we sleep deprived? Why can't we sleep? It could be any number of factors. Stress, being on, needing to be available at work all the time, shift work, that FOMO, fear of missing out. A big one that came up was issues with airway and snoring. Lights, artificial lights. So apparently in 1900, somebody wrote a paper on insomnia, like this new disease. And the reason why it came about at that time was that artificial light was suddenly affordable and widespread, and literacy rates had gone up so that people, and books were affordable and widespread, so that people were staying up later reading. And of course, now we know we're all on TikTok or whatever on your device, and it's really hard to disconnect from that. Age is a factor. In the Yoga Fit Seniors training, we talk about how often exercise decreases with age and sleep quality worsens. But the benefit of yoga and fitness is that we can increase sleep or increase exercise and increase sleep. It is interesting to note that that's the Vata phase of life, and trouble sleeping is considered a Vata thing. And then at the other end of the spectrum, at birth, Babies usually sleep well. We have this term, sleeping like a baby, but not so much for their parents. And it's just a toughie. We live so much more in our like nuclear family and less in extended family in modern society. And I think it's a special kind of sleep deprivation to have a new baby. When Tara Brock, meditation teacher, was a new mom, her teacher said to her, you get a pass. Like, you don't have to do your meditation when you have a new baby. And her meditation practice was to sit on the edge of her bed before she went to sleep and say, just this breath. And then she'd go to sleep. So keeping our practices, not just one more thing to add to this pile of factors and responsibilities, but to work it in people's lives that it creates space, creates benefit, which luckily there are lots of high compliance programs that people report enjoying. So we're in good luck there. Oh no, I don't want that. There we go. Clicked the light bulb, not the slide. Okay, so what does this affect in the body? Everything. Everything. There's no single other factor that improves health when we have it and negatively impacts health when we don't have it so much as sleep. Everybody I looked at said this. There's a book on the sleep solution, and Matthew Walker, who I already talked about, they'll talk about how our whole body, it takes a toll when we are not sleeping. Matthew Walker actually has this sort of evolutionary theory that sleep existed before wakefulness in evolution. And that says something about the value of it. It's very important for brain health and development, recovery from illness and workouts. I think often these go personality types that we have will forego an hour's sleep to do an hour's spin class or vinyasa hot power flow, something like that. And remembering that there is benefit to rest practices, restorative practices, as much as there is benefit to exercise, and they go together. It's also important to know that there's a downward or upward spiral in these things. So if we're getting a great night's sleep, our blood pressure might be better. Maybe we can be inspired by Crystal's presentation. We might have less chronic pain, any conditions that deal with inflammation. I know I've heard people who say their acne is better when they get a full night's sleep. Irritable bowel syndrome is better when you're sleeping well. When you're not sleeping well, it's the opposite effect. It can make your chronic conditions much worse. And then you don't sleep well because you don't feel good, and so on and so forth. The benefit of our yoga practice is that it's something to do even if we can't sleep. We can still get the benefits, the many benefits of rest. And then to scare you, all these people who, Matthew Walker talks about this too, people who say, I'll sleep when I'm dead. He says, well, actually, yes, that is what will happen. Every 30 seconds in America, there's a vehicle accident due to sleepiness. One of the best things you can do to prevent late adolescent death is actually later high school start times, because we have fewer sleepy drivers on the road. So he does work, pressuring and educating and saying, really, we should be moving high school start times back. Poor sleep is correlated with Alzheimer's, shorter life. They actually say the quality of your sleep is the quality of your life, which we may have known, or the hours of your sleep or the length of your sleep is the length of your life. We might have thought that intuitively, but the data shows this as well. What else can I say? Oh, so important that poor sleep worsens all major psychiatric conditions, and poor sleep is a factor as well in major psychiatric conditions. So again, we can have this upward spiral or this downward spiral. And Andrew Huberman uses a slightly different statistic. Rather than having an accident every 30 seconds, one person dies in a fatigue-related traffic accident every hour in America. And then other complications we might have, self-medicating and spillover into quality of life, work, relationships, and just general enjoyment. It's not nice to be awake when you're tired. And then other bad habits that we can get into. And I don't know if they're, I guess they're sort of somewhat complications. Mental rumination, just beating yourself up, self-flagellation, spending as much time in bed as possible. This is very tempting, right? You're tired, so as soon as you get in from work, you get into bed. Maybe you've had 5 coffees, so you don't sleep. And then by the time night comes, you haven't tired yourself out or rested enough to get an effective night's sleep. Another one, this becomes in the same way that you might sleep lightly, listening for a phone call that you know is coming, checking the clock. Oh, I know I'm not going to sleep well, so I'm going to keep checking the clock every time I can to prove to myself how poorly I'm sleeping. And actually, it's like taking away a security blanket, but one technique for insomnia is actually removing clocks from the room that you're sleeping in. Interestingly enough, the less you sleep, the worse you get at judging your own cognitive abilities. So when you're a little bit sleep deprived, you're a good judge of like, oh yeah, I'm tired, I'm not quite thinking straight. Sort of like when you have one drink, you know, okay, I'm a little tipsy. And then after several, you think, I could drive. It's the same thing with sleep. And I didn't quote this here, but that's Matthew Walker talks about that and the research they do with reaction time and comparing it to drinking and your complete inability to judge how functional you are in this world. And he talks about people, it's like a veil had been lifted when they finally start getting a good night's sleep, that they've been like existing in a fog for years. Very common too with people, the qualities on the left, self-flagellation, mental rumination, spending as much time in bed as possible and checking the clock, a disconnect with feelings of sleepiness and wakefulness, and an inaccurate judge of how long you actually lie awake for. So if you're telling yourself, I had a bad night's sleep, I'm going to be tired all day, without actually checking in with how you're feeling, it causes quite a disconnect, because sometimes you don't sleep and you feel fine the next day for whatever reason. Or vice versa, you have a good night's sleep and you're just kind of slow. And then the best story that I have heard, and I always feel the need to point out, this is an anecdote, this is not, you know, widespread study, but a couple was in bed one night and they wake up in the morning and one turns to the other and says, you know, how'd you sleep last night? She goes, oh, terrible. I just lay at the ceiling all night. And he says, oh yeah, me too. I didn't sleep at all, just stared at the ceiling. And as they go to get out of bed, there's like rubble all over the blanket. And they realize in the night there's been an earthquake and the like shaking has shaken like the popcorn ceiling onto their blanket. And they both slept so deeply, they missed it entirely. So we can be a very, very bad judge at how rested we are, how much we're sleeping. And you'll see, I want to focus a lot on the yamas and niyamas and body awareness and checking in and like, yeah, this ability to be honest and judge ourselves. Okay, so a typical treatment, you've probably heard of sleep hygiene before, just having like good habits. Cognitive behavioral therapy, so working with a therapist around your thoughts and actions and how they affect your sleep. There is a specific cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, managing stress, getting enough exercise. Okay, here's one that I, again, think in the fitness world, no. If you are teaching 6 high-intensity interval training sessions a day, you don't need more sleep. So none of these recommendations are one size fits all. Actually, probably except for daylight. You should be getting daylight either first thing in the morning, or if you have a weird schedule, 16 hours before you'd like to go to sleep. But there are limits. So CBT has been around since the 70s. Sleep hygiene is like just a good classic go-to. And there's still this hunk of the population who it's not working for them, or it's not working enough for them. So maybe they were sleeping 4 hours a night and now they're sleeping 5.5. So there's still something else that can be done. And it ends up being often just one more clock in the room, one more box to tick. Oh no, I didn't do my perfect sleep hygiene routine. I'm going to just lie awake all night. Like that kind of, sometimes it can add pressure rather than taking it off, which is the benefit of a rest practice that we say, don't worry about it. If you can't sleep, you can still do some stretches. What's your favorite guided meditation? How about make it your own self-care time? Make it like this nice, going to the spa kind of luxury thing. So there are limits to these recommendations, but yoga can fill in the holes. Interesting to note though, medication is no longer the first choice. And there may be different medication, interactions of medication. A lot of clients I deal with at the hospice are on steroids. So they might be that kind of tired, wired sort of thing, or a weird sleep schedule. You might have thyroid issues, like any kind of medications might kind of monkey with your ability to feel sleepiness or wakefulness. And then of course we want to reduce caffeine and alcohol. There is, I can't remember this woman's name, but she always says she's no fun at parties. There is no safe level of alcohol as a known carcinogen. And Matthew Walker says the same thing. He says, I'm not much fun. Nobody wants to be around me. You really should drink 0 alcohol if you would like to get a good night's sleep. A couple of different treatments that are sort of East meets West, I guess. Yoga as medicine, and Ayurveda says this too, and Chris Winter, this other doctor who wrote The Sleep Solution, talk about a strict sleep schedule. So even if you have slept poorly, get up at the same time. Ayurveda says do not sleep in, you're going to be sluggish all day. But I find that that makes a lot of sense, but there are limits to it. What are we going to tell a shift worker? What are we going to tell a new mom? What are we telling somebody who's doing a ton of different appointments at 24-hour clinics? Maybe they're getting an x-ray one night and then an MRI another night, and then maybe they're a caregiver too, and then they're driving their loved one to get a CT scan. So making it not just one more item to stress about, but something to work towards. But I find this sleep reduction schedule very interesting. Sleeping less than 8 hours a day, waking up at the same time, and no napping. I'm not going to be encouraging this so much, but I think there is a certain person who this would be perfect for. Someone who probably spends too much time in bed and sleeps very lightly. I used to be like this in high school. Not that my experience is the whole experience, but I would go to bed at like a normal time that an adult would go to bed. I had to catch the bus to school at 7. So I'd try to go to bed at 9, and I would just sleep so fitfully all night. So I found that if I just stayed up until I was naturally tired and went to bed at 11:30, I would have a solid night's sleep. So that is my thinking with this program of strict sleep reduction, is that you establish a different relationship with sleep, where you go and you actually get a solid night's sleep rather than fitful. And maybe it's good for people who are never going to sleep 8 hours anyways. It's just not a priority for them. So I thought that was kind of an interesting, different recommendation that may work for some. Okay, sedation. So this is why medication is no longer the first line of defense. There are a lot of issues with sleep medication. Melatonin is one. It's not a prescription medication. It's just not controlled. So you have no idea what you're getting in that pill bottle. It is a very powerful placebo for some people. There are over-the-counter sleep medications and prescription sleep medications, and they often are good very short term for a large portion of the population, and then after that, they're not helpful. They're not actually very effective. There are so many side effects. And cognitive behavioral therapy actually performs better than sleep medication. And if we're thinking rest to rise, we want to be wakeful and live fully. We don't want, if you've ever taken over Benadryl or Sleep Ease is an over-the-counter sleep aid. You wake up the next morning and you're very tamasic, very sluggish, slow to get going. I'm not sure which is worse, being tired because you haven't slept well or being tired because you're sedated. So sedation is not the same thing as sleep, and you can see it on a brain scan. You are unconscious. So again, it may help to establish a different relationship with sleep. People might feel a sense of success, and that's good. That might start an upward spiral. But the idea of staying on sleeping medication for the rest of your life is not highly recommended. Okay. Again, another like East meets West sort of thing that's great. All of the like Mayo Clinic and Harvard Sleep and, you know, conventional Western treatment is now also saying breathe, do yoga, meditate, listen to guided relaxation sessions, get your essential oils going, like all that good stuff we love. So yay, it's gaining momentum in conventional treatment. Okay. Okay. So I did throw Chinese medicine in with the Eastern perspective as well. I find this so interesting. So sleep maintenance insomnia is the most common type of insomnia, whether it's, diagnosed insomnia or you just are a little stressed out and having trouble sleeping lately. So this is where you have trouble getting back to sleep. In traditional Chinese medicine, they talk about this being caused by congestion of the liver and excess yang energy, which I find very interesting because it relates to like a very Rajasic personality type. I think this is probably a very modern Western career year, like during your career years of your life, kind of insomnia, where you have that like go, 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 you're exhausted, so you collapse for a couple hours. And then you're up again because you haven't found that peaceful engagement or burned up your excess energy. We have qualities of heat, movement, anger. This is what they say too. We need to effectively express our emotions, restlessness, wakefulness. So yin yoga and the Ayurvedic clock fit in really nicely. Different language, very similar recommendations. But a nice lens to see it through. And then later in the night, after 3 a.m. is when you're most likely to you have the most dreams during that time, and you're most likely to have nightmares and lucid dreaming. If you're familiar with this, I'll get into it in a little bit. So that's related to the stomach meridian. So I went through and pulled out yin routines for liver, excess yang energy, and the stomach. And it's a nice fit because we know yin is calming, soothing. It's awesome. Oh yeah, and Bernie Clark makes this mention too and relates it to the kidney. So I pulled some of those poses to go in with my classes. Okay, what is Ayurveda saying? So it depends. Like we looked at all those various different factors from the Western perspective. We're going to have various different factors from the Eastern perspective. So our dosha imbalance. So in yoga as medicine, they talk about insomnia being excess vata. And specifically, if you're awake between 2 and 4 a.m., that sleep maintenance insomnia. So this might be your go, go, go person, an anxious person, a restless person. But I don't think that's everyone's insomnia story or sleep trouble story. If we're looking at a lot of the population that I'm working with at the hospice, so I just led this program on grief and bereavement. So often when you are grieving, you might not be getting enough exercise. So that might be a reason for being unable to sleep, right? You're just like feeling crummy and grieving all day. You don't feel like getting out and getting fresh air and taking a HIIT class or whatever else it might be. So that might need more work around heart chakra, a feeling of liftedness, less of a feeling of sluggishness and heaviness. Very different than someone who is excess vata. Excess pitta might have more trouble falling asleep. These might be our participants who have trouble turning off. Just one more email, one more email, one more email. Or I notice that I suddenly come alive at 10 p.m. and I get my second win and I must be a night owl. So not one size fits all. Again, looking at the individual, there are a lot of group recommendations we can make, but I would never run out and say, oh, your vata is excessive, that's why you can't sleep. Or in the same way that I wouldn't say, oh, you need more exercise, that's why you can't sleep. We know this, make a customized program. This peaceful engagement piece, our guna imbalance. I really want to look at the peaceful engagement, true rest being sattva. So if we are thinking coffee and wine culture, that's not everybody, but it's common. We wake up and you know these people that have their coffee maker set for 6:30. So when their alarm goes off at 6:45, their pot of coffee, thank you, Crystal. I knew a woman who would always, when I saw her, she'd be like, oh, I just wish I had my coffee on an IV drip to carry around with me. And then you go home and you've just been like running full tilt all day. And so what do you do to unwind? You have only one glass of wine, but the glass of wine is this big and you can just about pour the whole bottle in. And this is a way that we can, externally regulate our states, but I would love to have us internally regulate our states. So we don't have this extreme fluctuation, rajasic, tamasic, go, 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 collapse, that we can be more that third way in the center. And I think it's important to note too, sleeping medication, very tamasic. It sits in your system. Alcohol, tamasic, sits in your system. And you might think it helps you fall asleep at night, but then the next morning there's that kind of sluggish dip. Okay, honoring the Ayurvedic clock, waking before 6 a.m. if possible. No heavy meals before bed, especially, that should say hot and spicy. This was me last night. Right before bed, I thought, is this red meat going to keep me up tonight? I think I'll just eat it. I should be fine. And 2 a.m. rolls around and I can just like feel my body digesting. But I'm an expert on sleep now. So I listened to a guided meditation. I had some tea. It was fine. And then some kind of dinacharya practice so that we don't run full tilt into the day. We have something soothing first thing in the morning. So we can get up, maybe rather than having coffee, we're having often I find people need to like treat themselves. Well, there's this decaf coffee or no calf tea that I love, but it's, $12 a bag and it's loosely, just get it. You'll feel better for it. Just get it. Like it's $12, calm down. How much is your cable bill every month? Cut the cable, buy the tea. So something soothing to fit into your routine that works for you, that you'll actually stick to, right? I like to slather up in oil before I get in the shower. Other people are going to like their $12 tea. Pick something that you like. Rest during the vata time and then wind down later in the evening. Okay. So yoga as medicine. I'm pretty sure they don't really use the language of the vayus, but there is a lot about grounding, downward movement, that apana vayu, kind of bringing things down, pressing into the feet, squatting poses, forward folds, lots of forward folds. If we do have that vata imbalance, then this would be perfect to have more heavy food. We don't want to be overly weighed down, especially if the reason for your inability to sleep is excessive downward energy. But I think it's still a great starting point for most people. I was thinking about this too. I think a lot of people have this, putting together this presentation. I'm like, so Vata, like there are just so many different things I can pull from, and how am I going to narrow it down, and how am I going to focus? I'm like, I need this. But how many people have jobs like that, right? That you have like so many things going, and every one of your kids is in a different sport after school, and you have to remember to go to these different places and pick up that, and just this like, kind of up their energy. We do need that downward energy to prepare for sleep. I did find this interesting too. I'd forgotten about this. Vata and Pitta should work to 75% of their capacity. I don't know if you've ever had this happen, that you go like all out in a workout, and you get into bed and you're like vibrating. Yeah, or you've taught one too many classes that day and you get into bed and you're like, yeah. Again, that kind of like sensation of, being wound up. So quick flow vinyasa and activating pranayama may be aggravating if you're not already grounded. This is counter to the Western recommendation to increase movement. So one assumes hyperarousal and restlessness, and Western sort of assumes that we're all sedentary. And somewhere in there for ourselves and our clients, we'll find a good fit. Okay. This, I think, is a huge aspect in insomnia that more the cognitive behavioral therapy goes into in terms of Western treatment. Looking at our samskaras. What are you doing? Like I got into a flow. I don't know how this is happening. I got into a flow at one point, this habit of just like going to bed ridiculously early and taking over an hour to fall asleep. And just like that got to be my routine, until one day I realized, like, what am I doing? If I go to bed every night at 9 and I don't fall asleep till 10, why don't I go to sleep till 10? So there should be a time and a place to analyze our samskaras. Often we have attachments, or it's part of our identity. Oh, I'm the person who has insomnia. I'm special and a little different because I can't sleep at night. And there may be, from person to person, different attachments, whatever it may be, but still something that we need to look at. And I think that there is a need in here for klesha and yama and niyama work, being truly honest with ourselves, analyzing our coping strategies. Is it really working? Is there a better way that it could be working? You know, maybe you're doing things like that sleep deprivation program where you sleep less than 8 hours a night on a really strict pattern, and it's making you nuts and you're sleeping even worse than you were before. Well, we don't need to grasp tightly to any one routine in particular. We can let go of those attachments, because if you fight for your limitations, you get to keep them. And I love this graphic of the kleshas. So we might have some sort of false identity, identifying with ourselves as the person with insomnia, a fear of release, a fear of surrender, right? All day we armor up and we go out into the world and we're strong and we don't surrender. And then we come home, and how do we take off that armor? Our attachments to our patterns, coping mechanisms, whatever they may be. Maybe I find a lot of resistance in people who have trouble sleeping. They don't want to take in any new information. Oh, no, that would never work for me because, and then the ignorance aspect, I want to tackle some of the myths around sleeping. Let's hold that thought. Okay. Your body speaks your mind talks a lot about first chakra. So this is what I chose to focus on for my chakra work. And I think it's a more balanced, kind of practical approach that she talks about. Daytime stress means it's hard to be not stressed when we're sleeping. We have to be able to have no control and surrender the ego. How is it that we can find ourselves in a quiet space and be just with ourselves and be okay with that? Maybe too much exercise, maybe too much stimulation, maybe an uncomfortable bed, which makes me think too about people who have, does your partner snore? Do you rent a studio apartment? Do you live along the subway line? Nothing in the Western treatment at all mentioned any of those things. What if you have an apartment with no windows? Your circadian rhythm is going to be off. Like just simple, basic things. Is your bed uncomfortable? Are you in a loud environment? Did you, your sister left the country and left her with your dog who insists on sleeping on top of you all night? Not naming names, but that may have happened to me. So these things happen. Fear of missing out and disengaging with the world. This I noticed too in some people that I work with. And as a little kid, I was like obsessed with waking up first in the house because like, I don't know, I was the youngest of the family and like I didn't want to miss anything and I already had to go to bed earliest. So I think there's a lot of that desire not to miss out. And Arianna Huffington actually talks about this a lot. If anybody's a fan, that she felt the need to always be on all the time. Okay, and again, this idea of being fearful, releasing, not grasping, but peaceful engagement. Again, we're back to the first chakra issue, the right to be, childhood trauma, insomnia itself may be the trauma. Could be trauma of illness. I think medical trauma does not get enough, maybe since COVID, doesn't get enough airtime. I listened to an interview with a woman who was in and out of hospital something like 19 times before her 19th birthday. And the reason that she originally went in for, by the time she was 19, they said, actually, I think now we're treating you for medically induced PTSD. And she's like, great, I've been here so many times. Now that's like my new issue. Matthew Walker too talks about illness. When you go to a hospital, he says, why don't they make it like when you get on an airplane, they hand you an eye mask and earplugs. Hospitals are loud and bright. So any number of things that could happen there. I think especially too with my population of a day hospice that are often having many treatments or taking someone to many treatments, that could be part of the trauma. And no amount of sleep hygiene is going to help you if you have a traumatic relationship with being unable to sleep. For chakra dominance, because the body is not safe or comfortable, we sort of eject ourselves upward to where it is safe. So our body is just a vessel to carry around, our head where we can live comfortably. And we can't, when comfortable, getting into more of this downward grounding movement. This theme kept coming up in so much stuff. Like a broken cup that has been repaired, your root chakra may not seal completely. So there may be issues with grounding and containment. This theme of a broken cup being repaired was in many different places. So if anyone wants to run a program around that theme, I think it would be a good fit. Okay, Andrew Huberman, a neurological biologist, I think that's what he is. He talks about leveraging the breath and the visual system. So that physiological side that you saw in the video, I got that from him. And he talks about first thing in the morning, daylight, bright overhead lights, and then if possible at night, floor lighting or lamp lighting or low lighting. 16 hours before you go to sleep, you have to have bright lighting. It's okay to have blue light in the morning. Do not wear those blue light blocker glasses all day long. And talking about relaxation, so Felicia mentioned this ages ago, looking away being relaxing for your nervous system. I cannot repeat this in as much detail as this expert did, but it's high stress to have something high focus and close up. So for example, being on the phone, working on your computer, and that's fine because being enthusiastic is a certain kind of stress on the body, but we can't be like that all day. So looking at things like a vista is naturally relaxing because it is a large visual field. Keeping in mind, if you live in the downtown core, you might not get to see that very often. So again, taking into account the individual lives that people may be living. Here we are, our kintsugi, our broken cup, but healed with gold. So it can actually be a real gift to have trouble sleeping and then gain these skills that have this huge spillover into the rest of your lives. Now you can rest. Now every time you have to take a bus somewhere, you do a guided meditation. So that potential for post-traumatic growth is there. Charlie Morley works with a lot of people who've served in the military internationally, and he looks at trauma sensitivity, coherent breathing. So that's I don't think I've heard it called the Sukha Pranayama before. Maybe I had, but I forgot. The inhale for like 5.5 seconds, exhale for like 5.5 seconds for about 5.5 rounds of breath per minute for about 5 minutes. He encourages mindful movement. It's a specific practice called breath, body, mind. I actually don't know what it is. It's Tai Chi and yoga inspired. Sleep hygiene can make it worse because it's just one more box to tick to make us more like Vata energy. You saw the worry writing, and then he also does a nocturnal journal. So when you wake up in the morning, you write down your dreams, when you fell asleep, when you woke up, the quality of your sleep. And he does a lot of teaching around lucid dreaming. So this practice of controlling your dreams, very helpful in nightmares. And he talks about the benefit of nightmares. People who have nightmares are actually more likely to do well on tests because they've sort of like faced their fears, and you can take steps ahead of time to, he talks about, you know, if you have a nightmare, you forgot your passport, what are you going to do when you wake up? You're going to go find your passport. So it can help us sort of in that practice of rehearsal. This came up a lot too. This is like a whole other thing. It's debated whether or not humans are designed to have biphasic sleep. So if we know that sleep maintenance insomnia is the most common type of sleep, we sleep for a chunk, then we're awake, then we sleep for a chunk. And not that different from like siesta cultures. You might not sleep 8 hours at night, but then you go and take a 2-hour nap in the afternoon. There's something in there that works for some people. So he tells people that, you know what, maybe you're just a biphasic sleeper. You're designed to sleep in 2 chunks. The Industrial Revolution made it though so that we should work for 8 hours, play for 8 hours, and sleep for 8 hours. Maybe the Industrial Revolution doesn't work for you. Maybe you sleep for a chunk, you get up in the night, you can have a snack, be with your family, read a book, and then that lack of stress around being up in the night helps people slide more smoothly into the second phase of sleep. So you might sleep 4 hours, be up for a couple hours, and then sleep a couple more hours, and then maybe take an hour nap in the afternoon, something like that. And you can still get all 8 hours of sleep. It does not have to be in one go. Okay, book recommendation. You have to read this book. This book is the science of Ayurveda. It's everything you already know, but in non-Ayurvedic language. I don't know if this author has even encountered Ayurveda. He, rather than prescribing a certain time to sleep, says you may be an early bird, a night owl, or a third bird. This has something to do with the season you were born in. I find that so hard to believe, but that is what the research says. So an early bird is someone who naturally wakes up early, naturally gets tired at night. Night owls, we probably know what night owls are. People who are naturally sort of on, they get their best work time at night. Often this is artists and dreamers, and we just think that they're lazy and they don't want to like cut their hair and get a real job, but it is truly a chronotype. The most famous one I know of is Tony Robbins. He says he turns on around 1 or 2 a.m. And then our third birds, and this is actually most people who have more of an 11 to 7 sleep schedule. And that all 3 of these types sort of go through a peak, a trough, and recovery that is the Ayurvedic clock. We have our Pitta time of day, our Vata time of day, and our Kapha time of day. He never uses those words. He says, Don't make any major decisions in the afternoon. He has this very dramatic chapter that opens with, there's a hospital where rate of accident is twice the regular rate, and goes on into all these details. And this hospital is the afternoon. That he says, I would never let a loved one go to the hospital in the afternoon. And then he profiles hospitals that are doing things that just have more checks and balances through the afternoon. So before they perform a surgery, 3 times they have to say the person's name and what they're getting done. Then they go around the table and introduce themselves. So if you are still at work during the Vata time of day, being just much more rote about stuff that you do, checking brainless emails, moving paper from one pile to another, sharpening your pencil, straightening the room, whatever, like any of that stuff that doesn't require major brain work, but that we get more creative later in the day. We have the powers of Vata, right? We're more social later in the day. Our mornings is not when we should be scheduling chatty brainstorming meetings. Morning is like head down, analytic, pitta work. So rather than getting up in the morning, getting up slowly and sluggishly at the wrong time for you, and then getting to work and brainstorming, and then you hit the afternoon and you're supposed to work on your most important project. And then by the time you get home, you've never really hit your stride. So honor the day's rhythms so that you can hit your stride well. And he says he's actually, since he wrote this book, like this was his me search. He revolutionized his life. Okay. Oh, and a note on compliance. People report enjoying exercise more later in the day. So if you have someone who doesn't like exercise, get them to do it in a social way later in the day. And that seems to stick better. Okay, the nappuccino, my gift to you. This is the right way to drink coffee. Okay. It's horrible, by the way. No, the best time to drink coffee is when cortisol levels drop. Don't drink coffee the first 1+ hours after rising. That's the part that's horrible. I was reading something the other day that said, according to Chinese medicine, you shouldn't drink caffeine until 11 o'clock in the morning. Like, who are these people trying to make life horrible for me? But the idea is that cortisol levels rise when you first wake, and they drop 1 to 2 hours later, and cortisol and caffeine interfere with one another. So you want to drink your caffeine when cortisol drops, which I actually wait. If you remember my obsession with nostril dominance, so I'm thinking, okay, so the right nostril is dominant when you first wake. I wait till it switches to my left nostril. That's when I have my first coffee in the morning. It doesn't take a whole hour, but I can't make it that long, so I don't care. And then again, between 2 and 4 p.m., you know, when you hit that wall, that is the time for the nappuccino. You drink a coffee quickly, like you have to be prepared. You put ice in your coffee, you drink it quickly, you lie down, you put your eye pillow on, and you have your guided relaxation. 20 minutes later, when you get up, you will have the caffeine will peak in your bloodstream and you will be refreshed. It is perfect for a yoga nidra. If you worry you have too much caffeine, have some carbs or glucose to soak it up. There you go. The nappuccino. That's like when I listen to interviews with this guy, everybody wants to ask him about this. So now you know. He also talks about outdoors is best for your lunch break. Social is better than alone. And he is an introvert. And he talks about the benefits of actually being slightly extroverted. And even though he thinks he won't really like it, it has brought a lot to his life. So you might want to shut the door to your office on your lunch break and be tempted to, I don't know, just keep checking email. Grab a friend, go for a walk. You'll feel better. You'll be more productive and happier in the afternoon. Okay, my honorable mentions. James Nestor says poor sleep is a breathing problem and recommends crunchy food to keep your airway open and keep your teeth in the right place. Kelly McGonigal says 2 minutes of morning exercise boosts your mood for hours, even better if you do it outside. Patrick McEwen has written a bunch of books on exercise, and he teaches functional breathing, a full inhale, a slightly longer exhale, and a slight pause. I've really enjoyed teaching this with my classes as a 4-5-1 breath. ASMR, I don't understand, but people like it, so why not? If it's like white noise and people listening to someone reading something boring, I think if it helps you calm down, go for it. You don't have to understand why it works. Ariana Huffington, she tells this great story where she was working at her desk and was so sleep deprived that she collapsed on her keyboard and injured her face so badly she almost lost one of her eyes. And ever since, she said, if that's success, I don't want it. So her website has like a whole sleep section dedicated to this. And she's really changed sleep culture at work. She turns her phone off. She has, I got one of these actually, a dumb phone. For $8 a month, I have a phone that only people who might need to call me in the middle of the night have that phone number. It stays on, the ringer stays on. I've never needed it, but for $8 a month, I don't have to keep my phone on at night. Worth it to me. And stimming, this kind of goes along with ASMR. My friend tells me she can't sleep unless she rubs her feet together. That's why this is in here. People like rock back and forth or like have to do like weird fidgeting things, humming, walking on their toes. Another thing, like if you want to burn up that restlessness, it's weird, but it works. Go for it. Okay. Oh my God, how are we only at this part? Okay, there's so much research on sleep and yoga. Just believe me. MBSR has lots of great results. It's an 8-week pre-programmed program that looks at yoga, meditation, and informal awareness practices. So it performs really well in emotional reactivity because your like homework for the week might be noticing your emotions while you're doing dishes. So really, yeah, really great ability to develop awareness. It's a traditional Zen Buddhist meditation program distilled and normalized for a Western audience. John Kabat-Zinn developed this in like 1979. Like it's been around for a while. It's worked really well. And they looked at, he started asking other doctors, like, how many of your patients do you think you help? And they were like, I don't know, like 20%. And he's like, 20%? What happens to them? Well, some of them get help somewhere else. Some of them, this problem like spontaneously goes away. Some of them just leave. And he was like, okay, no, we need to do something to help these people. And a lot of the benefit of this is coping skills. You're still going to have asthma, but now you have coping skills for it. You're still going to have chronic pain, insomnia, whatever it is. It's a lot of coping skills and acceptance. So I'm going to pull those things into my classes, the meditation practices, and a lot of his writings. Compliance is good, always important, and it's often offered for free in hospitals and other clinics. If you're interested, I can give you a link to a free self-led one online. Yeah, and a lot of these things are like very little formal education. I hate to call it free, but you might need a computer and an internet connection, which most people have already. Okay, this one I love, a mix of walking, morning movement, and yoga nidra. Almost no cost, can be done at home. One thing they looked at was a decrease in pain and headaches, elevation in mood. I was interested to see, though, it did take a while for sleep and mood to improve from the 4th and 5th week onward. But I guess when we think about major medical interventions, 4 weeks is pretty good. So we're still in good shape. I figured it would be the first night, but oh well. So I'm adding mindful walking to my program because of this. Other benefits of yoga nidra, we're talking about peaceful engagement, lower cortisol levels, improvement in subjective sleep quality. And there was a great article I found about yoga as the next wave of therapeutic modalities for treatment of insomnia in the Journal of Yoga Therapy, and all these benefits, again, like self-awareness, awareness of samskaras, the ability, pratyahara, right? The ability to lie in bed in a dark, quiet place and be still and be okay with that. I think we forget, people are not okay with that. My aunt, the only way she could fall asleep was to just be like blackout drunk every night. That is not safe or comfortable for every person. Oh, okay, very important. I'm surprised this hasn't come up yet. Promote the general benefits of yoga rather than as a sleep aid. Because if people do yoga and they're like, great, I did my yoga, I checked that box, and now I'm gonna have a good night's sleep, and they don't, it's only gonna increase their frustration. It's just one more clock to look at. So promoting the benefits of health, relaxation, rest, proper breathing, flexibility, range of motion, quality of life in terms of daily tasks. You can put your own shoes on, all that stuff, fantastic. But staying away from like, you did this program and now you will have an 8-hour perfect sleep. Maybe not so great. And then she has a couple other points. This author, clinging to beliefs about sleep. So I want to tackle some myths with my program. And again, trauma and maybe hypervigilant. They don't want to rest. This participant wants to sort of be on all the time, like a meerkat, like ready for anything, but maybe open to the benefits of yoga for health. And that might be the foot in the door or the crack in the door that later down the road they go, okay, I'm ready to sort of drop my sword and shield. And CBT and sleep hygiene have plateaued. So what important research needs to be done? And there is a study. I don't remember if I took the slide out. We're waiting for the results. They're going to post it. It's a large study on yoga nidra. So I will post that when I find it. Okay, Charlie Morley, I already talked about. His participants report loving the sleep education. That they find out that actually it's normal to roll over and wake up several times a night. That's not bad. And then they just start like sleeping and not being stressed out. So that for sure, I'm going to incorporate into my program. Benefits of rest. If you can't be asleep, you can still enjoy resting. It's a lot of yoga nidra and the practice of journaling, morning and night. Just really, really good results with body awareness, sleep awareness, and lucid dreaming. We have that dream yoga course now. If you're not taking enough courses, go take that one. And then here are we're waiting for the results of this study. Okay, so we know it's multifactorial, which means there is no one size fits all approach. There are some contraindications. It's like basic yoga contraindications. Speak with your doctor. If you are really uncomfortable with stillness, you might want some recommendations like our Yoga Fit Warriors, like in the video I did, the fan and the gentle light and maybe holding a stone or having someone safe nearby, avoiding anything strenuous. And I don't know if I'll get into this, but for lucid dreaming and sometimes yoga nidra, anyone with a psychological condition where they have difficulty recognizing what is real and what isn't. So like an active psychosis can be a little bit dangerous when it comes to especially lucid dreaming. Yeah, and actually the author Charlie Morley didn't really talk about that too much in his work. So I don't know how common that is. Okay, our biopsychosocial factors. We know that sleep affects every system in the body. It is going to affect our resting heart rate. Our nervous system is going to be either fight, flight, freeze, not that peaceful engagement probably. Although if we get good at down regulating and being okay with being tired, then yeah, we can find that more place of homeostasis. I didn't find a big link with HRV and good sleep, but I kind of wonder if maybe just more research needs to be done, because intuitively we'd think, wait, wouldn't you see some sort of result? Fatigue makes social relationships more difficult. I think this is a really big one, that we might look at the health benefits of a lack of sleep because they're so obvious. But it's hard to stay married when you're tired all the time. It's hard to be professional in your place of work when you're tired all the time. So a big aspect there, again, is that peaceful engagement, reactivity, emotional awareness. going to be repeating everything else that's here. Lots of relation to stress and our gunas, our emotional state. Okay, our koshas. Physically, going to be uncomfortable. It's going to exacerbate health issues. We might do things to self-soothe, coffee and wine culture. Our pranayama or pranamaya, we might have a loss of vitality. You know, we're in the world, but are we truly alive? This idea of having a veil between us and the rest of the world that can be lifted with a good night's sleep. I want to work a lot with Monomaya Kosha, this self-rumination, self-flagellation. Our chit happens, you know, our thoughts and our ability to be okay with our chitvrita. A total disconnect from trusting ourselves and being really honest about what actually is working. You know, we tell ourselves, oh no, I'm a person who can't sleep well. But are you really? What if you practice yoga nidra and you start sleeping well? Maybe we could tap into that Krishnodamaya and do some reassessments. And then a lot of the yoga nidra looked at the Anandamaya Kosha of imagining a safe space, imagining a happy place. And often we might, like self-medication shows up in almost every one of these to try to achieve that state, right? You're tired and you feel crummy all day. What do? You self-medicate when you come home from work. I think all of these are on another slide. This is how they are particular to the koshas. But I think it's important when we look at assessments, what are we measuring? We know already that measuring quality of sleep or number of hours of sleep as the first factor might not be the most helpful thing to do for quality of life. So I would like to focus more on the quality of life. We do have biological factors and other factors we can look at, like heart rate, HRV. Maybe we could get off some medication or have lowered symptoms of our health problems. We can look at our ACEs. But yeah, I would just love to see like a different relationship with sleep. Yeah, I don't always get my 7 hours, but I'm okay with that now. At least I can rest. Okay, these are all my methods to reunite. There's like so many. I just like, at this point in the slideshow, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna drop them all. I'm not formatting anything. There's a lot. We'll see them in the techniques. So I really, really want to focus on root chakra. There's also some work with the sacral chakra, our ability to feel good. Again, that self-flagellation, beating ourselves up about not sleeping. How dare I rest and feel good? But because your body speaks, your mind went into this so much, and we know that trauma is a factor in lack of sleep, and I'm dealing with a population with medical trauma. That is where I'm going to focus all of my energy. But I would like to do chakra balancing classes, just general chakra balancing. Once sleep and safety go out the window, like a house of cards, other things will be, at the very least, weakened, not ideal. And then balancing. This fits in with so many of those other recommendations from different perspectives, and the chakra perspective fits into it very nicely. Grounding practices, grounding poses, grounding food and drink, connecting to nature, earthing, weighted blankets, maybe sandbags, a weighted eye pillow, soothing, grounding music, seed sound, worry writing again to get into that feeling of safety, and affirmations for the same. And then again, at this point in the slideshow, I was like, I'm just dumping it all. If someone wants to look at this, they can. There's so much. These are our possible tools. Here we go. Welcome to my tool shed. Breath practices to help us largely with, I mean, our nervous system and our breath are so interlinked, right? We have our physiological sigh to tell our bodies and minds it's time to wind down. The same with the 4-8 breath. Inhale 4, exhale 8. You can inhale 4, exhale 8, and hold for 4. For whatever reason, Andrew Huberman doesn't recommend that. I don't know. Belly breathing, alternate and single nostril, breath education on like a 3-part breath, as we would call it. And also that awareness of circadian rhythm and alternating nostrils, I think, is so important. You know, when you feel tired in the afternoon after a big meal and your left nostril is dominant, good time to rest. Some morning practices, a smile breath, laughing for no reason. I think I need to get into that practice. I think I'm like a little too grumpy lately. Let's all do it now. Counting breath to calm a busy mind, counting backwards, that yoga nidra practice of counting, our coherent breathing, probably for a day practice. I find that keeps me up at night. Again, it's not a one size fits all. The 4-5-1 breath and a bee's breath to, you know, kind of like that stimming, burn up restlessness. I would like to have a mudra each week, all of them around releasing stress and negativity, overcoming obstacles, seeing ourselves in a new way, right? Lifting those samskaras, turning over a new leaf, and then some morning mudras for energy as well. I'm going to make a playlist of these morning practices for my clients. I can share that with you if you would like. Okay, our poses and our movement. Stuff in the morning to wake us up. And after watching Crystal's presentation, I was like, oh yeah, the belly press is supposed to give us more serotonin. Okay, good. I'm going to throw that in. And then anything, you know, we feel sluggish in the morning. It's counterintuitive. You don't want to get going. And then you do 2 minutes of jumping jacks, and even better in the sunlight, and like you're good to go. It changes your physiological state. Tony Robbins does a lot of this weird, like huffing and puffing breathing and waving your arms around, laughing for no reason, something to sort of get the motor running in the morning in a more peaceful, joyful way than just chugging coffee like your life depends on it. And I'm calling these apana poses, all of these grounding downward poses. We don't want it to be excessive, but still getting into that kind of effect. Tense and release, or progressive muscle relaxation, you might know it. Legs up the wall, or other gentle inversions. Someone was talking about putting the head against the wall to get that mudra benefit. Yin for stomach, kidney, and liver, it should stay. Restorative poses, and then the basic exercise, or any of those other Stanley Rosen, the stuff, you know, the stuff with the eyes. It's gentle and can help us wind down, or even if we're sluggish in the morning, something gentle to do, but we still know we're doing something good. A long list of poses for stomach, kidney, liver, supportive, forward folding, relaxing stuff. Okay, visualization, thinking about, again, like our kleshas and combating that with visualization. Seeing ourselves in a more ideal form, turning over a new leaf, envisioning a positive future. A lot of the yoga nidra had to do with picturing a safe space, remembering a time when you were warm and comfortable at the beach. Think back to a time when you felt happy. Think back to a time when you felt whatever. Think back to a time when you felt stressed, and then a time when you felt relaxed, and going back and forth, that idea of pendulation to find, again, okay, I'm okay. I can come back to homeostasis. I am safe in my own body. Yoga as Medicine recommends palming the eyes, which I think is great to help us maybe be more comfortable with darkness again. Might be upsetting for some people, but might be really nice for some to, again, burn up some of that restless energy and relax the eyes. And what they call samadhi at the beach. So again, remembering a time when you felt comfortable, relaxed, that pose that we did in the video, like a sunbather's pose. I think most of these we should be familiar with. John Kabat-Zinn does a lot of meditations about acceptance and noticing our own behavior, noticing our own reactions in wherever you go, there you are. It's a really great book. So I've pulled some from there. This I've noticed is getting, I think, growing in popularity recently, the hero's journey, and seeing yourself in your own hero's journey, gathering your resources. She does this great meditation about picturing yourself as the hero about to set off on a journey. Who are your friends? What are your internal and external resources? to feel, empowered and not alone. Lots of compassion meditation. It's supposed to perform well for a wide variety of things. They use compassion meditation in mindfulness-based stress reduction for insomnia. Right? If we're up all night beating ourselves up, I'm so angry, why can't I sleep? Why am I like this? It might be nice to do some self-compassion or compassion meditation. Yoga Nidra, body scan, Soham, mind noting, any of that other breath awareness, Vipassana type stuff. And this one, I'm not sure if I'm being efficient or lazy. There are so many scripts to just read. I'm just going to go with that. A chakra balancing affirmation. It's one of my favorites, one of my clients' favorites. In Yoga Skills for Therapists and a couple of the Nidra books, they do talk about like really accessing your own personal affirmation. So that could be an info session to do with clients around what's a good Sankalpa, what are good affirmations that work for you, ones that you want to post around the house or keep in your wallet or whatever it may be. And then I'm just pulling a pre-made tapping script, like emotional freedom technique tapping script for one for morning, I'm ready to go, and then one for before bed, maybe in the afternoon slump, or ones to do if you wake up in the night. And this idea of staying present, I have this deck of cards from Eckhart Tolle's Power of Now book that I really like. My favorite is there something you should be doing? If so, get up and do it. Otherwise, completely commit to your laziness. It's like something like that. Like, it's okay, but completely commit to it. Oh, I just noticed your note on me being grumpy. Yeah, I told my friend the other day I'm going to quit my job to be grumpy full time. Maybe it's a phase. Okay, our Ayurvedic components. We talked about this already. Grounding to pacify Vata, but that might not be your problem. Testing your guna. I would really love to see the needle move on guna states. Although I guess that says I'm anticipating it's going to be a total mess when people come to me. Maybe it'll be fine. Maybe they'll have a different problem. The Vasant Lad book had so many recommendations for tea and food, what color you should wear to sleep better. I thought that was really interesting, or to calm, to be more peacefully engaged. And this came up in a couple of different places. I wish I could remember the original person that I heard who said, it might have been Ram Dass, who talks about saying like, oh, I'm not angry. And his teacher saying, get angry the right way. Access your anger, feel it, let it come up and let it disperse. Marianne Williamson talks about this, like, I'm on lesson 54 in the Course in Miracles, and I don't get angry anymore. She's like, no, it's okay to be angry, but get angry the right way. Somehow release it, observe it, don't stuff it down, don't act it out on other people, be with it and release it. And there are all sorts of yoga nidras for emotional intelligence. So again, a morning practice and an evening practice. I did read a couple things that said peppermint and vetiver are great for your nervous system because they are stimulating and calming at the same time. And I work with a woman who always pairs them together. She always does lemon and Siberian first, something cheerful and energizing and something grounding and stabilizing. So we have that nice balance. So that, again, we have that peaceful engagement. We're not just like dousing ourselves in orange oil because we're like, yeah, start my day. But that you have, yeah, that grounding practice of opposites. I have 3 or 4 books now called Yoga Nidra. There's Radical Rest. There's a couple of great audio programs. There's like so much out there. So midnight meditations I'm currently reading. There are some journal prompts. On Amazon, there were a couple of previews. So I read a couple of pages and was like, I'm falling asleep already. So I think this book is good. John Kabat-Zinn, I talked about Wherever You Go, There You Are. He also has Full Catastrophe Living. I don't know, I just like this one more. I find it more like usable for the everyday. Marianne Williamson on anger. And I'm going to put weekly info sessions into my program. Journaling, Where are you writing? We did that. Nocturnal journal. I want to give journal prompts. I want, again, for that Anandamaya Kosha aspect, gratitude journals. Rose Thorn Bud is a variation on a gratitude journal. And then Midnight Meditations, that book that I got, also has, you can do them as a meditation or as a journal prompt for emotional intelligence and stress relief. Relieving whatever it is. We don't have to stuff it down and tell ourselves to just power through and sleep through the night, but you can get it out on paper. And my favorite so far is self-validating your emotions. So, and I have a tapping script for this too. You know, I'm anxious about going to work tomorrow, and writing in your journal, that makes perfect sense that you're anxious about that. Work can be stressful. So that power of self-validating, I think, helps too with our yamas and niyamas, our self-study, our honesty, our ahimsa. The tea and the essential oils are pretty much the same. I now have like 8 boxes of tea at home that I'm working my way through. I don't know if it gets to the point of drinking too much tea, but I'm probably there. Okay, here's my program. I have 8 minutes on my timer. Rest to rise, how to live more fully through the wisdom of rest. So I'll get to that in a second. So these are my objectives. So Crystal was talking about this too. Why are we running the program? Like, what are we looking for? Do I just want more numbers of hours of sleep? If so, why am I not just giving people a sleeping pill or just, you know, powering off their houses so they don't have light bulbs after 8 o'clock at night? What am I looking for? I would love to see an improved relationship with sleep, rest, and wakefulness for this peaceful engagement. I'm okay if I can't sleep at night. I'm okay if I'm tired during the day. It is okay to have these things happening. That sometimes it's uncomfortable to rest because we just instantly go into that deflated collapse. I don't know if this is you, but lots of people just, if you're not constantly stimulating yourself, you will be unconscious. I would love to see a shift in that in whoever ends up taking this program. Improved quality of life, enjoyment, purpose, engagement, personal relationships, decreased stress, increased positive emotions and peacefulness, decreased emotional reactivity as well. That's one thing they test for with the mindfulness-based stress reduction. Maybe decreased symptoms from health. We'll see what we can do in 8 weeks. That walking and yoga nidra program had good results for pain and headaches. So would love to see that. Of course, ideally, we'd like to see sleep onset quality and quantity, but probably not from, ironically, you know, if you try really hard to fall asleep, you're not going to fall asleep. I think if we try really hard to get that result, it's not going to happen. But if we just work on journaling and relaxing and drinking tea, it will come along. And if it doesn't, that doesn't matter because of the benefits that we've gotten along the way. Improved energy level and coping. I would love to see that. And our big idea of peaceful engagement through regulating the nervous system. Okay, so I have not made this pre and post assessment yet. I'll have to narrow it down. Sleep tracking, mindfulness, and awareness. This was an interesting questionnaire. I can share the link if anybody wants it. It's things like, I'm aware of my body. I'm aware of my emotions. Which I think is funny because you might if you're totally unaware, the first time you might put 10 out of 10 for every answer. And then you gain some awareness and you realize how unaware you are. Your score might actually get worse the second time you do it. So maybe there's some room in there for reflection of like why you put the answers you put. Pain scale, tracker of other symptoms, blood pressure, medication, I don't know, like skin picking was one that came up too. People who don't sleep well have that like kind of need to pick. Life satisfaction, energy levels, compassion should improve if we're doing all these compassion meditations, work with our emotional intelligence. I always love the flourishing scale. I would love to do breath observation and see a more functional breath, posture, and range of motion. Maybe we're standing a bit taller, being ourselves more fully after a great night's sleep. Resting heart rate. This is why I got a smartwatch. I waited till the first one that came out, the first Fitbit that came out with 24-hour heart rate monitoring, and I could see my resting heart rate going up and up and up and up and up all the way until my one day off work when it dropped. And that's when I realized, okay, I think I'm teaching too many classes. That was the end of that. And my resting heart rate, it's lower now. Yeah, some kind of assessment for our root chakra, doshas, and definitely our gunas. Overarching themes that I would like to weave through every class: staying present, witnessing, being the observer rather than reacting, our yamas and niyamas. Big time body awareness, right? Because you can sleep 6 hours and go into your day and feel fine, rather than, oh, I slept horribly, I'm going to feel horrible. Let's gain some awareness around that to be more realistic and then be able to respond better. I heard Dr. Mark Hyman, functional medicine doctor, say, listen to your body. It's the smartest doctor in the room. So learning to hear the language of our bodies. Awareness for thought and feelings, befriending the body, riding the waves, or coping with the ups and downs of life, and acceptance. My basic outline for this program is an info session of 5 to 15 minutes. I'm like becoming more and more right-brained, I guess, about this. Like, just show up for a session. Are we going to finish early? Are we going to run late? I don't know. And it seems to work well because I'm not padding for time to make it to that 60-minute mark. If everybody's done, they're happy to leave a few minutes early. And I'm also not concerned if people are asking extra questions and it takes a while. Fine, we can stay a few minutes late. That's okay too. It's on Zoom, right? They can leave if they don't want to be there. My class outline: a mudra, breath for balanced energy, poses for down regulation, meditation to increase awareness, guided relaxation, and then some kind of down regulating pranayama, that 4-8 breath, something to wind down. So rather than our usual 3-mountain format, this is a nosedive format. We're just taking that energy way down. We might burn up a little restlessness and then sliding into relaxation. I've got 2 minutes of my time. Okay, my info session, just the basics of how to set up for practice. Starting with something I think that is more commonplace and accessible: how to journal, how to set up your space, how to be aware of our bodies, how to breathe. And then every week layering on more scientific information, trickier kind of breath awareness, working in supported poses, always some kind of yoga nidra or relaxation. I mean, we have a whole hour to relax, right? So we're probably going to do at least a 20-minute relaxation at the end every day. Our sleep hygiene, but making it trauma sensitive, routines around sleep hygiene. Layering on our yin poses, which I think are a little trickier, and then cycling back through more basic poses some weeks so that we truly can get into that svadhyaya and yogi's choice, get into poses that they prefer. Looking at the Ayurvedic clock and components of a great morning, right? A great morning starts with a great night and vice versa. Being kind to ourselves is our theme for that week. Afternoon practices. Oh, forgot to say, lunch is supposed to be the most important of the meal of the day, Ayurvedically and according to that Dan Pink book. Basic chakra balancing with our yoga nidra practice. Emotional intelligence, right? Getting angry the right way. This is one of my favorite techniques. If you remember level 2, our face and replace, rather than I'm never going to sleep again. I will sleep, but until that time, I can relax. Changing our words to be more helpful. I love NLP. If you ever want to talk to me about that, there's a Tony Robbins program on like pretty much just face and replace that I can recommend. Okay, my timer's gone, but this is the last week. Best practices, what's actually working for you, listening to your body. And we finish with visualizing a positive future and the hero's journey meditation. Ta-da!